Creator is directed by Gareth Edwards and stars John David Washington, and tells a story about a cybernetic man who goes on a mission to try and uncover something, and when he finds out that it involves this child who is the key to whatever this plot is, I try not to spoil. He is trying to protect her, and the bad guys are trying to kill this child, and he has to make sure that she is safe and that they're able to figure out this problem together. Now, I'm trying to be vague because despite me not loving this movie, I appreciate it for what it was trying to do. It was trying to be original, but that's kind of where my problems lie in its originality, and we'll get to that. Let's go over my positives because I do have a lot more positives than negatives here. For one, the visuals look great. With Gareth Edwards directing, you are for sure going to get a beautiful looking movie. Movies like Monsters or Godzilla 2014 or Rogue One, despite what you may think about the story, and I do have some problems with Gareth Edwards in that regard, I think as a visual director, he is one of the best out there. Almost all of his shots that he was able to capture look incredibly real. And that thanks to him having a lot of knowledge in visual effects, how to utilize visual effects when he needs to, in a very cost-saving manner. This movie costed $80 million to make, yet it looks so much better than most of the films that have come out in 2023. Especially most of the Marvel films, if not all the Marvel films. Yes, I'm including Guardians 3. Despite that movie still looking incredible, this movie, The Creator, looks 10 times better in terms of its visual effects, how the foreground is focused on compared to the background, and what is in focus, what needs to be in focus, how everything's visualized. It's like all of it was visualized perfectly, from storyboard, from concept art, to this, to the screen. It is beautiful to look at. You know, a bunch of wide shots of everything. This movie feels big. It feels like a big blockbuster. The characters are also really good. John David Washington does a really good job as our main lead here, as well as the child that he is trying to protect. This relationship I felt like was the strongest in the entire film, and the way this movie was able to spend time with these characters just enough for us to understand how these two start to grow attached to one another and feel attached, what the plot leads to for this relationship, and how certain revelations are revealed to the characters. It made this relationship interesting to watch, and I was able to care about what's happening to these characters. But by the end of the movie, when we get to the climax, I was actually pretty sad as to what happened. I'm not going to spoil what, but I was really emotionally invested as to what these characters are going through. That's its entire film. I think character-wise at least, Gareth Edwards did a much better job here than he did in Rogue One or Godzilla. This is probably his best set of characters since Monsters. Actors also like Ken Watanabe are really good here too. A bunch of the side characters, despite not having as much screen time, are really believable in their roles and they feel very lived in here. And I really like the world building too. This world is pretty interesting. My only problem with the world building is that I felt like there could have been more as to this film, because this is like a world like Blade Runner 2049 mixed in with Star Wars. It is a very interesting concept, and I wish that the movie story would have delved in more into these concepts and ideas. I think what it tried to explore was interesting, though this leads me to my problems. What it does try to explore are stuff that we've seen from Terminator, Blade Runner, or Star Wars, but it doesn't do anything new with it, which is why I wish the movie would have done more to explore some of these topics, expand on some of these ideas that have not been expanded in certain ways before. But it feels like the movie didn't know how to expand on these ideas, which made the story ring very hollow. It made the originality aspect make it not as original as it may seem, because this is taking a lot of plot points and elements and characterizations from many of these popular films like Blade Runner or Terminator. Like a hero trying to protect this kid from a bunch of bad guys. Terminator. Star Wars, the visuals, this laser beam that's about to try and destroy what's in its way. Star Wars. This visual look of cybernetic androids just living with humans. Blade Runner. Like, we've seen these ideas before. And I wish the movie would have expanded more on this. Because it would have made the themes hit a lot harder. The characterization, even though it is good here, would have been a whole lot stronger. And I really did wish that the writing would have been more original in that regard. And I could only imagine that Gareth Edwards was just so into the visual aspect of the film that he had forgotten the story aspect. I really did wish that this movie would have been more original with its story and writing. But other than that, I think my other main issue is that the pacing, because of this, just goes a little bit too slow at times, especially in the middle of the film. I felt like the pacing slowed down exponentially to a very degrading level. And I felt like when it picked up by the third act, it was a little bit too late. Just a little bit. That middle portion was a bit of a slog to get through. Though there are still some visual elements and characters I did like here. Many of the action sequences are great. Like how it was all filmed, how it was all set up, how the cameras were blocked and staged, how everyone was staged. It was beautiful. It was beautiful to look at in an action sense. But then again, the story, the pacing was just too slow. And I appreciate it for being a much slower film to take its time with its characters. But I felt like because the story rang too hollow, it made the pacing just drag on way too much. Which is why I don't really consider this a great movie. Just a good watch with interesting ideas sprinkled throughout, good characterization, but like with most Gareth Edwards films, the story just, it needs work. But I am glad I did watch it, because there's still enough interesting elements here for me to enjoy. I don't think it is a great masterpiece, and I think that's the general consensus here, but I would rather take this than a soulless cash grab like the Marvels any day of the week. At least with this film, is trying to do something different, is definitely taking inspiration from other films, and is passionate about a story. You can tell the creators are passionate about what they're doing. There's a lot of care put into the screen. I wish there was just as much care put into the writing. And so for that, I'm going to give the creator a B-. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please like, subscribe, comment, and I will see you guys next time.